Venom movie could have been much better. After two fairly decent movies, Venom 3 had an important mission: to close Eddie Brock's and Venom's story well and with heart, a relationship we followed for 6 years. But what went wrong in this third movie? Instead of giving us the emotional closure we expected, the film felt like a series of disconnected subplots and an attempt to be something more. So in this episode of Peak, we're going to analyze what was the problem with the film showing the relationship between Venom and Eddie. Venom 3 fell short in trying to deliver a solid story to end this beloved trilogy. I'm Pasker and welcome to a new episode of Peak. Making a Venom movie is hard. You see, we've had many adaptations of Venom over time, comic, cartoons, and live-action movies. But despite all these being different versions of the character, they have one thing in common. In all of them, except some comics of course, Spider-Man appears. So how do you make a movie about one of Spider-Man's most iconic characters, which also seems to be working best when he's with Spider-Man, without Spider-Man? So Tom Hardy recently said in a Q&A I attended that making a Venom movie without Spider-Man was a big challenge. And I think it's because most people already associate Venom directly with Spider-Man. So making a standalone Venom movie is quite complicated, but somehow they managed. So the question is, how? I'll tell you how. You put an acting genius like Tom Hardy to form a relationship with himself, but in black, for 2 hours. The reason these Venom movies have worked out much better than any other movie Sony has recently tried to make related to Spider-Man is because Venom tries something different. Venom isn't necessarily about the character's story. It's a story about two friends trying to blend and work together despite having different ideas. The first movie was good because the chemistry between Eddie and Venom was quite entertaining. Tom Hardy gave an excellent performance as Eddie Brock and brought a humorous touch to the film, thanks to the good connection he managed to form with himself. Yes, because he does Venom's voice too, so he's actually Venom too, so he's talking to himself. You get the point. But this is something that works really well and that audiences definitely enjoy. Let's not talk about what the critics thought about the movie. So Venom 1 made a total of $856 million at the box office, making it one of the highest grossing films in 2018. This clearly indicates that a Venom movie without Spider-Man could indeed work. Plus, people, including myself, were really excited because for the first time, we were given a design for Venom that made fans go, oh yes, that right there is Venom. I remember when the first trailer for this movie came out, I was in school and my friends and I reacted to the first look at this Venom design and we were all like, thank you Marvel, thank you for this Venom. This is the Venom we've been asking for ages. Just look at this design. This was the real Venom. A great design that finally honored the character, unlike anything that we've had before. We came from this thing right here. And if you add the fact that they initially said Venom 1 was going to be a horror movie and very intense, which didn't happen because making it R-rated meant fewer viewers and less money, so they didn't do it. That was a shame, honestly. I was disappointed because I was hoping to see this version of Venom being a complete cycle. So a combination of excellent chemistry between Venom and Eddie Brock, along with a relationship that evolves throughout the movie and a perfect design for Venom, is what made Venom 1 work without Spider-Man. Although honestly, I still have wet dreams every time I remember that this could have happened. Let's just say it, this is the dream. It's a shame that we didn't have them together. But that's not the point. This worked without Spider-Man so much that they released an entire trilogy. But we're here to talk about the problem with how this trilogy ended. So what went wrong with Venom 3? Venom 3 had the important task of giving closure to the story we followed for 6 years about Eddie Brock and Venom. They could have ended the story in countless ways, and I think the general idea they had about how to end it was pretty good. Because the problem wasn't that the idea wasn't bad, it was that it was bad executed, and I feel this is one of the movie's biggest issues. The plot of Venom feels confusing, as if it's split into several parts that never fully come together. We have like 3 different stories in this movie. The main story of Eddie and Venom trying to get to New York to give Eddie his life back, which apparently is the main one. The story of the government trying to hunt down symbiotes to study them, along with the story of a scientist living her brother's dream after losing him as a child. Also the story of a dad chasing his lifelong dream of seeing aliens with his family, which honestly was my favorite subplot. So you see my point? There are so many subplots in this movie that end up getting lost and never lead to anything. And you might say these subplots add value to Venom and Eddie's story, but really they don't. They just feel like filler in this story. The one story that might add something to Eddie's and Venom is the family story, because Eddie somehow sees what he could have had. But beyond that, none of these subplots contribute to the main story we want to be told, which is the end of Eddie and Venom's relationship that we've followed for 6 years. And when they finally have the chance to show us more screen time with Venom and Eddie, they completely waste it. The only real bonding scene between the two is literally at the end of the movie when they're about to die. Honestly, I would have liked them to use more screen time with Venom and Eddie to give us a story that further solidifies their relationship. I'm not saying that they can have jokes and action scenes, I'm just saying that since this is their last movie, I would have liked to see something more than Venom playing in a casino and dancing with Mrs. Cheng. Don't get me wrong, Mrs. Cheng, you are so cool. I mean, this is the last movie. Do something meaningful with their relationship, something that makes sense. And that's one of my main complaints with Eddie and Venom's story and how it was carried out in this movie. Could I've done it better? Definitely no. Besides, another story in this movie is about the symbiotes, and honestly, they were fine, but I also feel they were underutilized. Again, they could have been much better. Their symbiotes weren't bad, honestly, they were just like meh. I don't know if it was their designs or how they were handled, but they just felt strange. They also had very little screen time, which is understandable since the story is about Venom and Eddie. The one that was really cool, I mean, it was the green one with swords. I actually liked her action scenes. Of the symbiotes in Venom 3, for me, I mean, she was the best. She really shines in this movie. The other symbiote that looked really good and should have had more screen time, I think it was the purple one with super speed. This design was really cool. I really don't know why the scientist brought it out only when she saw everything was messed up. I mean, could have been useful earlier. Maybe Sony has plans for this symbiote and it will give it its own movie, but honestly, I don't think so. And speaking of Sony and its plans, we need to talk about Null. The villain of this movie is Null. I say villain because the trailer scene is the only thing we saw of the character in the entire movie. Sony is keeping this villain for future projects, and my theory is that they'll throw him at Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And honestly, I hope they do. I mean, they have Andy Serkis as Null. You don't waste that. So in this movie, Null sends these weird creatures to finish off Venom and the symbiotes. These monsters work. I mean, they're good, but they don't feel up to the par with a villain worthy of taking down Venom and Eddie. These monsters just felt like an excuse to give Eddie and Venom a conflict, and this could have worked out if Eddie's and Venom's story relationship had been better developed throughout the movie. But instead, the story feels like a game of cops and robbers where Venom and Eddie just have to run away from those things, and it's the only thing that they have to do. But don't get me wrong, I mean, the design of these monsters and their abilities was really cool. I really liked them in the movie. I just say that they are not worthy of ending a trilogy like the one that we've had. I feel it would have been good if they had given Eddie and Venom a villain with more purpose. A villain? What am I saying, man? A villain with more purpose. One who truly challenged them. It's like when Thanos sent Loki to Earth against the Avengers. Loki wasn't the strongest villain, he was sent by Thanos, and seeing what Loki caused in New York with the Chitauri gives you a perspective on what Thanos is capable of. It makes his arrival even more anticipated and imposing. And again, all of this could have been justified or would have worked better if the movie had done a good job developing Eddie and Venom's story. But that wasn't the case. Venom 3 could have been much more emotional than it was. I feel that if Eddie and Venom's relationship had been better established during the movie, the ending would have been more significant and made more sense. Since we've already had 3 movies about their relationship, this one should have solidified it more, bringing them closer together so that when the time comes to say goodbye, it's truly devastating and leaves you in tears at the cinema. And don't get me wrong, again, the end of the movie was emotional and significant, but it could have been much more. This story of Venom wanting to see the Statue of Liberty was a very good idea, and it was quite emotional when Eddie went to visit it alone, but I feel like it could have hit harder if their relationship had been more solidified in the movie, and that's what I feel was missing in this Venom movie. Also, Memories by Maroon 5, I don't know, just didn't fit there. It just didn't click for me. So why did the Venom movie fail? The Venom movie had a great idea but ended up being poorly executed. Instead of further developing and consolidating Venom and Eddie's story, they give us a plot that felt disconnected and like a filler, as if we were playing a video game going through different chapters and checkpoints. Also, the villains in this movie, the monsters, are good, but they feel like a forced conflict. On the other hand, the symbiotes were pretty fun, but some still felt a bit strange. In conclusion, I feel Venom 3 could have been a very emotional movie, but unfortunately it ends up being a somewhat lackluster farewell to an adventure we followed through 3 movies. I liked Venom 3, I thought it was good, but I feel it could have been much better than it was. I mean, for me, For me, it was a solid 7. But hey, this is just my opinion and you should just ignore it.